For centuries, naval dominance was defined by massive battleships, floating fortresses armed with colossal cannons and protected by layers of thick armor. These behemoths of the seas reigned supreme from the 19th century up until the early 20th century. The paradigm began to shift during World War I, but truly transformed in World War II, when aircraft carriers emerged as the new centerpiece of naval warfare. The concept of launching aircraft from ships had been experimented with since the early 20th century, but it was during the 1940s that these vessels truly came into their own. While battleships like the USS Iowa class could hurl massive shells weighing over a ton up to 40 kilometers, aircraft launched from carriers could strike targets thousands of kilometers away with greater precision and payload, often double the explosive power. Take the Hellcat fighter, for example. Launched from Essex-class carriers, it had a range of over 2,400 kilometers and played a crucial role in decimating Japanese air power. The turning point in the Pacific theater, the Battle of Midway, was won by aircraft from carriers, not battleships. This marked the symbolic and strategic end of the dreadnought era. After World War II, the United States emerged as the uncontested naval superpower. During the Cold War, carriers became the foremost instrument of power projection, with each vessel essentially acting as a mobile airbase. These floating giants, manned by around 5,000 personnel, could launch up to 120 sorties a day, dominating vast theaters of operation without setting foot on enemy soil. Powered by nuclear reactors, supercarriers like the Nimitz and Gerald R. Ford classes could operate for decades without refueling, symbolizing a long-lasting global presence. With displacements reaching 100,000 tons, these were no longer just warships, they were mobile strongholds of American diplomacy, humanitarian relief, and military might. Aircraft carriers are not just war machines. They've proven invaluable during humanitarian crises, offering logistics, shelter, and medical assistance in areas devastated by natural disasters. In 2013, for example, the USS George Washington provided emergency aid to the Philippines after the destruction caused by Typhoon Haiyan. It delivered tons of supplies and helped evacuate more than 20,000 people, highlighting the dual-use nature of these platforms. But dominance breeds vulnerability. In the modern era, aircraft carriers face an array of existential threats. Submarines like China's Song class have been reported to approach U.S. carrier strike groups undetected, raising alarms about undersea stealth capabilities. Then there's the hypersonic missile threat. China's DF-21D, often dubbed the carrier killer, can travel over 3,000 kilometers at Mach 5 or more, 5 times the speed of sound, while maneuvering mid-flight. Intercepting such a missile is near impossible with current defenses. And let's not forget drones, cheap, scalable, and increasingly autonomous. Swarms of these can saturate a carrier group's defenses, posing a unique challenge to traditional naval doctrines. In response, the United States Navy is evolving. Innovations like the MQ-25 Stingray, a refueling drone, will allow fighters to extend their strike range by over 1,000 kilometers, enabling operations well beyond enemy missile reach. There's also a rising debate within naval circles about shifting to lighter, more distributed carrier platforms. Instead of relying solely on a few massive carriers, the Navy is exploring smaller, more agile vessels like the America-class amphibious assault ships, optimized for vertical takeoff aircraft like the F-35B. This dispersed lethality approach is about making the fleet less vulnerable and more flexible, especially in a future dominated by asymmetric threats. No modern analysis is complete without addressing China, America's primary strategic competitor in the Indo-Pacific. While the Chinese Navy grows in numbers and capability, its greatest Achilles heel remains logistics. China's economy is deeply dependent on imports: oil from the Middle East, cobalt from the Congo, bauxite from Guinea, and grain from Latin America. These supply chains are vulnerable, especially at maritime choke points like the Strait of Malacca. Here lies the strategic utility of U.S. carrier strike groups. They can enforce blockades thousands of kilometers from home, cutting China off from critical resources, without ever setting foot on enemy soil. Aircraft carriers are thus not just tools of war. They are instruments of global influence and economic leverage. Let's be clear, losing a modern nuclear carrier like the USS Gerald R. Ford would be catastrophic, both militarily and symbolically. That's why the U.S. is investing heavily in advanced escort ships, missile defenses, and even directed energy weapons, laser systems, to counter drone swarms and hypersonic missiles. But to declare the end of the aircraft carrier era is premature. No other military platform combines strategic mobility, sustained air power, humanitarian capability, and diplomatic presence like an aircraft carrier. They're not just ships. They're floating symbols of national will, visible proof that a nation can act decisively on the global stage. As long as the oceans remain critical arteries for trade, communication, and power projection, aircraft carriers will continue to rule the waves. If you haven't yet, subscribe to GeoWar News and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on global defense and geopolitics. Until next time, stay informed, stay prepared.